The only thing I think I'm great at is being me. I really believe that. I think self-awareness and leaning and lack of judgment on one's shortcomings are two incredible ingredients. Sleep falls into that category. I just have always needed to sleep. I wasn't functional. I'm not functional at 3, 4, 5. I don't feel great. I don't know why I would do that. And I've always thought people were confused about time. The badge of like, I work 18 hours a day. I love that. But I also work 18 hours a day incredibly effectively. So my 18 hours are like some people's month. And so whether I get 7 hours of work in a day, because that's the serendipity of what's up my life, or an hour or 18, and it ebbs and flows, always 10, 11, 12. I love working. I'm effective. And I've always, some of my friends over the last 4 or 5 years, when I've created better clarity on how I do this, they're like, wait a minute, I'm out grinding you, Gary. I'm going 18 hours a day. I'm like, listen, I'm like, yeah, but you watched 3 hours of YouTube videos. like being effective and efficient in your time. And that's why I've always been very okay with progressive thinking when people thought I wouldn't. When they're like, oh, 4-day work week. A lot of my friends in the last 3-4 years are like, you hate that shit, right? I'm like, not necessarily. I actually love it. I would love for the world to be off for 3 days, because then I could get 3 days. I could get more rest. It's what do you do in those 4 days? Yeah.
But isn't that affected a lot about this like FaceTime culture? That is, a lot. It's different in different countries, I guess. But like if you're in, my experience from big corporations is that you're expected to stay there until your boss goes, 100%. And then that can follow you even if you start your own company.
100%.
Because you feel satisfied in a way if you just stay there for a long time.
Yeah, and like, by the way, I grew up with that. My dad had a liquor store. We opened and closed the store. I didn't even know what it meant to leave something that you were doing early.
Yeah.
I wasn't in office culture. When I started VaynerMedia, I'm like, when's the right time to leave? Yes, I think that's absolutely right. But this goes back to the bigger point that I focus on, which is like, whether you love me or hate me, whether you love somebody who's got a different point of view on the world or hate them, and everything in between, you need to figure yourself out. The end. Like, there's people that work 9 to 3, 4 days a week. There's people that work 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, and everything in between. And there's ways to do it well, and there's ways to not do it well, all in between. And the question becomes, who are you? One of the things that is incredibly scary for me in my growth of popularity is I don't want people to parrot me. I want them to parrot me in the concept of fighting for happiness through self-awareness and then doing things that fulfill you. But I don't want them to directly copy me. And I think that that's a big responsibility that I think anybody that gains popularity, whatever you're doing works for you. Communicate in a way of what the bigger framework of that is, not the individuality. Gary, what's your morning routine? And people ask me that as if that morning routine would work for them.
Yeah, and then they're going to be successful if they do.
Right. I wake up and look at my phone immediately because I have a global company and I'm worried that Singapore had a fire in the building the night before. Like, I have responsibilities. Other people want to meditate for 30 minutes before they touch technology. That sounds brilliant to me. Like when my friends are like, Gary, you got to do what I do. I wake up and then I meditate for an hour and don't even look at the phone. I'm like, that's brilliant. For me, I actually release anxiety by looking quickly and making sure nothing's on fire, because anything that's like bad, we lost a client, this person quit, like normal stuff that people think, that isn't like, my great strength as an entrepreneur and a businessman is I actually don't give a shit about the business. Let me break it down. I love the art of the game more than the trophies that come from the game. So for me, losing a client is not fun. I don't want to, but I'm not crushed because of the revenue. I live within my means. And now all of a sudden my saving money content's about to do well. I've been putting out all this saving money content. Nobody likes it at all. I'm like, ugh. I have a funny feeling it's about to become very popular. When you have a lot of responsibilities, you have different frameworks. Yeah. And so, but by the way, and this is very important to hear, and this is, I hope helps someone, but if tomorrow I decide I want to meditate for an hour because I convinced myself, well, I could have just slept an extra hour, so what's the difference? Because that's logical. Then I will. And I think too many people struggle with changing their mind. For me, it's one of the things I'm most proud of. Tenacity matters. I think the tact when you're trying to reach someone matters as well. Some people can come off incredibly entitled, can come off incredibly unsettling. But there are many people who will email or DM or reach out 7, 12, 40 times. And I'm incredibly comfortable with it because I can sense the tenacity balance. It's a humble hunger versus an anxious expectation.
Yeah.
Right? And so, because they come in both forms. It's either very frantic and almost like you owe them and they just think that, and then they watch something like this and they're like, oh, I'll just email every day. But when there's no soul behind it, whereas other times you can tell that the person's being thoughtful, they understand that you on the other side are trying, and I appreciate that. And I get excited sometimes when I'm able to get to it. Like many times in the last 15 years, especially the last 5 years, as more demand has come my way, I actually get a sense of enjoyment when I'm like, you know what? This is the time I'm gonna reply to Carol Thompson or Steve Johnson. Cause like you see them, but you're trying. And for people that are listening or watching, when you have somebody on the other end who's getting bombarded with demand, many of those individuals actually really want to do it. But for me, for example, where it really went awry was I had to take a step back and say, look, my family, my own health and well-being, and really the responsibility of the 2,000 employees I have, I started realizing 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm like, damn it, I'm more accessible to a person that reaches out to me for the first time than somebody within my own organization.
Yeah.
And so I've had to make those adjustments, but I still fight. I'm the flight here from New York to Sweden, snuck in a couple email replies and a couple DMs. Like, believe it or not, that's the biggest thing I miss about traveling. For the last 2 years, Zoom, I am programmed like a robot.
Yeah.
Pure efficiency. I used to reply to people because I would get up and go to the bathroom in between meetings in my office, and that's where I would get certain things done. With Zoom, it's like, there was no serendipity time. The airport and traveling was when I would catch up with friends, catch up with my family, catch up with like the fans and the community. That got wiped the last 2 years. And so it's now that we're just starting to come out of our shell, I am actually enjoying it. I missed it, and I knew I would. I've loved so many things about the new world of, not having to fly to Chicago for one meeting and fly back. It's good on your health, all that. I'm excited about both. I'm a very big and guy. I think most of the world's problems, most people think the world is about or. This is right versus that, or it's this or that. And I think it's and. And so I'm excited about the digital world and the physical world, and that's how I think about it.